Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Tonight we're going to talk about the latest developments and follow up from yesterday's video about Benjamin Netanyahu's moves and potential moves to take things and shift things away from the pressure that he's having inside of Israel, with all of the protests against him and all of the court cases that are happening, with the mass protests and the pressure being applied on Benjamin Netanyahu to step down and have early elections inside of Israel. When we spoke about Benjamin Netanyahu and the crisis internally, the way towards a civil war inside of Israel and him passing the judicial reform, I mentioned the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu might go to escalate, have an escalation either in Gaza, Lebanon, or in Iran. In Iran, that would be the biggest escalation that he can have. However, clearly to this moment, Benjamin Netanyahu did not receive the full backing from the United States to go ahead with something big against Iran yet, so far. What did he do? He had an escalation in Lebanon. So for the second time in 6 days, there was a rocket launched from Lebanon to Kiryat Shmone, this time in Israel, to which Israel responded in an attack on Beirut, the southern suburb of Beirut. Israel is trying to drag Lebanon and escalate things further with Lebanon to shift away all of the eyes from Benjamin Netanyahu and hopefully try and decrease the situation in the eyes of Benjamin Netanyahu internally, reduce some of the pressure. Now, all of that is linked to the fact that there is progress when it comes to Gaza. One of the senior figures in Hamas, Bassem Naim, he said that the next few days we will hopefully get some really good news for the people of Gaza in relation to the war. And he said that things are proceeding, there are more things on the table, intense negotiations that could indicate that we are reaching a good agreement that will eventually take us to phase 2, the ending of the war, the withdrawal of Israel, and also having a ceasefire agreement. All of these things are linked, and they're also linked with certain moves that are being taken now by Egypt too on the diplomatic front with Israel, alongside all of the military preparations that they're having in Sinai. So we're going to start off with Lebanon. In Lebanon, another dodgy rocket being launched from Lebanon onto Israel. Hezbollah deny again. The Lebanese president, he denied that Hezbollah launched the missile too. So he's saying that no, Israel's trying to find excuses. Hezbollah did not launch the missile, and we condemned these attacks. And he had a joint press conference with the French President Emmanuel Macron, who actually said in that statement, in that press conference between both of them, that they stand with the people of Lebanon and that Israel is breaching that ceasefire agreement. France is taking a slightly different position, or is having a slightly different tone, at least to the United States, for example, that's saying that Israel is defending itself from what it's doing in Lebanon, although we're talking about one missile and Israel has been breaching throughout all of this time. Hezbollah, in their denial, they said that Israel's trying to drag Lebanon, and that is directly linked to Benjamin Netanyahu and his desire, his want to escalate further with the tensions that are happening and with the prospect of a deal happening in Gaza. Which takes us to the deal. Israel has been having massacres against civilians every single day in the Gaza Strip. In the past approximately 24 hours, over 24 people were brutally massacred by Israel in Gaza. Civilians you're talking about, with Israel struggling more now. And in accordance to the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, dozens of paramedics from the Israeli army sent letters refusing to serve in Gaza. And this time they're talking about the moral aspect of it, the fact that there are crimes happening there the fact that Israel is talking about occupying land, the fact that Israel is going against international law. You see the tone coming from some of the reservists in Israel now is changing. Of course, there were people who were refusing to serve and being imprisoned who criticized the government for its genocide and for its ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, but now it's becoming more of a mainstream, and Benjamin Netanyahu needs to shift things away from these reports inside of Israel. And the fact that these things are starting to be reported inside of Israel is showing you that things are becoming different day by day, and the tide is turning very fast against Benjamin Netanyahu. So he's struggling with the soldiers, the divisions that were operating in Gaza before the ceasefire took place are not going there anyway. He had to bring Division 36 from the Lebanese borders anyway. Despite the fact that we have an escalation, according to him, with Lebanon. And now they are, even with that division, they are refusing paramedics, people who need to be in the front lines, and others too, and that's being reported inside of Israel. There is another problem. That other problem lies with Egypt. See, Egypt and Israel, they had problems with their ambassadors. No declaration of expelling an ambassador as such, but delays. And recently, Israel sent a new ambassador to Egypt after a very long period of not having an ambassador. But to have this ambassador and to be accepted inside of Egypt, there's a ceremony where these ambassadors go and meet with the president of the state, and he guarantees or stamps on, approves their assignment as an ambassador to that relevant country. So the Egyptian president invited over 20 new ambassadors to Egypt, but he did not invite the Israeli ambassador. And that's, in the diplomatic language, that's something quite extreme, because you're inviting everyone and they are there, but you're not inviting only the Israeli ambassador. And again, in diplomatic language, you can do that as a country, but the problem is that can be translated by that other state as, this man is not welcome here. So Egypt is not taking a position of outright expelling or saying you are not welcome, but by certain actions that they are doing, they're saying, well, we don't want you here. You are constantly pushing against us, against the Gazans, and constantly going back on the agreements, and you're not welcome here. And Israel is, of course, feeling that. It's not to a level where, again, it's stopping any massacre in Gaza, but it's showing you that there are tensions on that front, and Israel knows that these escalations could start to translate to other things, because Egypt has the borders with Gaza, the only country that has borders with Gaza apart from Israel. And Israel also knows that they can do things that Israel doesn't like. Egypt did already several things that Israel doesn't like, primarily in the prevention of the ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip, despite very tempting offers. Egypt is not in a very good economic situation. They were offered for all of their international debt to be lifted, and according to many reports, over 120 billion US dollars. It reached to that level, and they could use that money very well, but they refused. They refused because of a solid position, clearly a solid position, at least when it comes to resisting the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. That led Israel to reconsider the strategy inside of the Gaza Strip. Now that Benjamin Netanyahu knows that he might get into a de-escalation in Gaza, that would lead, because all eyes want to go there, to phase 2. Phase 2 means Israel declaring outright the ending of the war, at least how the ceasefire agreement was published and known before, unless that is there is a new revision or a new ceasefire agreement. But if Benjamin Netanyahu de-escalates with Gaza and he pleases some of the people asking to de-escalate, he needs to have a very hot front very nearby that he can have as an excuse. Therefore, he is having these attacks from Lebanon, and so far no one is taking responsibility from the well-known organizations inside of Lebanon operating side by side with the Lebanese resistance. No one is taking responsibility. The way in which these missiles were launched is a very amateur way, and Israel is as if they are waiting. They're being tickled by these attacks to go in immediately, target the southern suburb of Beirut, in hope that this would somehow attract Hezbollah to an all-out war. With them again, and cause friction between Hezbollah and the Lebanese state. But in exchange, what that has been doing is it's bringing Hezbollah closer to the Lebanese state, because Hezbollah are showing the Lebanese state, despite of course disagreements, that we are committed to this agreement, the state of Lebanon. We are giving you the mandate. We have the capacity to attack Israel, but we are not responding because this is the agreement that we reached with you primarily, and for many internal purposes inside of Lebanon. Of course, there are people who are translating that as weakness or as defeat, but all of that is invalid and is based on flawed analysis, because Hezbollah, up until the last day before the ceasefire took place, had the biggest attack on Israel in terms of numbers of missiles coming in one day from Hezbollah, 500 in total, across all of the northern part up to central Israel, in Tel Aviv too, and these missiles were landing and Israel was having no answer to them. And all of these attacks happened after the pager attacks, after the assassination of the Secretary General and the leading figures inside of Hezbollah, meaning that they could have continued with these attacks if it wasn't for that ceasefire agreement. And Hezbollah taking a decision to back down or to temporarily halt their attacks does not mean weakness. It does not mean defeat. It means they are taking a strategic step, and that strategic step is working in the benefit of the resistance, believe it or not. It's not working in the favor of Israel. Israel wants to dictate the timing of that escalation to suit Benjamin Netanyahu's timeline. It isn't working. It is not working in Lebanon. It is not working in Syria. But where there are other fronts without any calculations to do with internal diplomatic feuds or flaws or direct geographical barriers with Israel, that's open, and that's primarily Yemen, and that's also to do with the level of mandate being given by the Yemeni people to Ansarullah, who are proving day after day that these people are people of principle. Today more statements came from Al-Bukhaiti, one of the senior figures in Ansarullah, saying even we won't stop until Judgment Day. This is what these guys are saying. If Judgment Day comes tomorrow, we'll keep attacking until the genocide stops in Gaza and the siege is lifted. So the good news is, well, the confirmation from Bassem Naim from Hamas that the next few days will hopefully bear very good news. That's based on solid talks coming and pretty good feedback coming from the mediators too, and clearly some sort of acceptance from Israel, some sort of an agreement that all parties can agree on up until we go into phase 2, or that it could include phase 2. The bad news is, well, Netanyahu is doing everything to try and explode other fronts simultaneously to deviate from the internal problems that he has. And the next few days will show if the ceasefire with Gaza actually works and we reach a ceasefire again, more aid goes in. If that reaches to phase 2, all good and great. If not, well, Benjamin Netanyahu could still be using the front in Gaza, but that wouldn't be enough for him. He's still gonna try and poke Hezbollah in Lebanon. He might have more escalations with Syria, and depending on the talks with the United States administration, there might also be an escalation with Iran.